Every week, millions of people move home, and as it's one of the most stressful things that you'll do in life, you need to get it right. I'm Rebecca Jane, and together with the region's best property experts, we'll be giving you some top tips and expert advice, shining a spotlight on a different area from across the Midlands, and getting to know a little more about our guests and what they look for in a home. Property is ever evolving and always a fascinating subject. We'll guide you on what you need to know and what you need to look out for here on Midlands at Home. Have you ever fancied running a B&B, a pub, or wanted to rent out a room or an annex? Well, on today's show, we're going to be discussing homes with income potential. Joining me now is Richard Harper from Fine & Country. Richard, welcome.
Hi, nice to see you.
Lovely to see you. You're not too far away from your Bromsgrove based, aren't you?
Yeah, it's not too far away, North Worcestershire. So,
yeah. And which office are you with Fine & Country?
I'm based out of Solihull office, which is a regional hub, so that covers all of the area that you cover here. And it goes into the sticks a little bit out to westwards to Herefordshire and Worcestershire and Shropshire. Yeah.
And we're talking about homes that generate an income. So we're looking at B&Bs, hotels, stables, post offices, coffee shops. There are so many options, I suppose, with incomes that you can get from property.
Yeah, I mean, I think it depends on people's aspirations in terms of what they seek out of life and also how much capital they have. I mean, obviously, if you're buying property, it involves having cash generally.
Yeah, sadly,
and,
you can't avoid it.
And to some extent, that steers them in the direction. And lifestyle as well. I mean, if people are interested in horses, then they might find the concept of an equestrian centre appealing.
Yes, exactly.
So no, it depends a little bit on personal circumstances.
And do you find people that are looking for this are those maybe wanting to either work from home or the other spectrum, I suppose, retiring and still wanting to make an income?
Oh, I think you've got to be careful not to pigeonhole people. I mean, it can be all sorts of circumstances. I think with bed and breakfast, I think you've even witnessed a younger market where people might have inherited money from family and decided that rather than investing in traditional routes to buy a property and use it to generate income as well. I think it's considered, because property is still considered a safe bet, I think they look at it as a haven for their capital, and then if it gives them some income as well, then that's a real plus.
So there is all ends of the spectrum then in terms of people?
Absolutely, yes. I mean, I think the traditional persona, particularly bed and breakfast, is sort of older people and floral curtains and Corby trouser presses. It's all moved on a little bit, really. I think if people are going to be successful and thrive, then they've got to move with the times a bit more. Yeah,
definitely. Now, we are going to look at a couple of properties now. The first one that we've got, let's have a little look at Elm Grange. This is in Heckington. It's on at 1.5 million. It's a 4-bedroom. And my goodness me, I mean, it's huge. We've got nearly 8,000 square feet, including the barn accommodation that we've got. I think actually over 5,000 square foot is the barns that are being used as offices.
Yeah, I think this is quite interesting because it shows, I mean, you've got a very high value property.
Yes.
But you've also got the income for people the potential for people to generate £50,000, which is a lot of income.
Yeah, isn't it?
So they live in a nice country pile. The offices are slightly detached from the house. They're maintaining their privacy, and they're getting an income, and they can control it. So that's you don't get many like that, but that's quite an interesting way to secure, a future in terms of income.
And I suppose you've got to have all the relevant planning and so on, so that you can use it as an office, as a separate
Yes,
source.
I mean planning's an issue. I mean, with older buildings, sometimes you've also got to be a little bit careful if they're listed. There might be concerns about listed status or conservation areas, but that's just something to seek some local advice about.
Well, they're saying actually the annual income on this one is 50k per annum, which is
it's
great, isn't it?
Very significant. Nice.
Yeah,
we could go away on that.
Yeah, no, it's all right, isn't it? We'll take that. The next one, totally different, townhouse. This is in High Street, Needham Market in Ipswich. Now, I love this one because it's a coffee shop. Coming in at a price tag of 565,000. So again, you will expect to see those initial outlays of 565,000. It's got a self-contained holiday let as well, a self-contained annex.
Yeah, I mean, this is interesting because, again, this is classic with a older building with very flexible accommodation. So here you've really got two potential income streams because you've got the cafe, which is great,
brilliant,
a daytime business generally. And then, of course, you've got the annex, which gives you your accommodation, which is probably more regular bidders, might be people visiting the area on holidays.
Yeah, that's it, Ipswich holiday lets,
or the like. So that's a bit more intensive in terms of time. I mean, I think that the appeal of the pure bed and breakfast is that people like to, finish things once the breakfast's cleared away and they've cleared the rooms, and they can have a little bit of time to themselves. I think with a cafe, it's probably a little bit more engaging because it's operating through the day.
And I tell you what is really popular is the sort of vintage cafes at the moment, the cream teas. Not that they've ever gone out, but they just seem to be, the thing at the moment. If you do run you run your cafe well and you do all of that, then I do think that there's a big market for that. Yes, apparently.
Cafes,
not that I have many cream teas, of course. And then, of course, we're going to have a look at B&Bs after the break. Now, talking about these different types of properties that will generate an income, I think it's very careful, I suppose, that we do a lot of research. This isn't something just to rush into.
Oh gosh, no. I think the first thing to accept is if you're going to go, and specifically bed and breakfast, you obviously need the capital.
Yeah.
It's probably a good idea if you know how to cook a good breakfast.
True,
That's probably a reasonable criteria. But I think what you tend to find is the market polarises into a seasonal market. So you get people who'll be very attracted to go and to where they perhaps used to go on holidays as children and end up on the coast. And that'll be a market that could be 7 or 8 months of the year. And very often people will do that, and then they'll lock up over the winter months and have a bit more time to themselves. And then I suppose closer to home in the Midlands, you've got more of a commercial market where people will be operating throughout the year. And I think the reality to that, and this is really allied to the sort of the hotel business generally, is that as the economy improves, there's a real shortage of bedroom accommodation generally.
Okay.
So it's not just a government saying we need to build lots of houses, but actually as the economy thrives, there is a shortage of places for people to stay. So part of the commercial aspect is if you're focusing more locally, is to do your homework. And really the key is very simplistically, it's rather colloquially called bums on beds, but when you do your numbers, you need to be very sensible about what the occupancy rates are going to be, and make sure you're thinking about your cash flow.
So just be very realistic then.
Yes, and make sure you can cook a good breakfast.
Very true, yes, definitely. And I think it's very interesting with yourself because you're obviously part of Fine & Country, but you've also got a family hotel as well, so you actually know the other side of this as well. Yeah,
I mean, I've witnessed it from the other side, and I think it's interesting because the similarities. I mean, a hotel is, a bed and breakfast is only a small hotel really, but I think what I've witnessed is that the 3 criteria that are so important now, a comfy bed. I mean, you can see this, and you can see that the national companies advertising the importance of how comfortable their beds are. Also, I think a flat screen telly has almost become de rigueur in terms of everybody must. But the absolute top of the pops is broadband Wi-Fi, because when people are away from home in a hotel, whether it's leisure or business, they need to have access to Wi-Fi. And what you can find is that people won't go back to somewhere if their experience of broadband was really bad, and it's an issue that is critical. So in terms of retaining customers going forward, I would say top of the pops broadband. Oh, there we go. And have you found that customers have been, in the business over the years, when people have come back to you, they're just getting fussier? Do we want more from our stays in the hotel? Well, it's quite funny because obviously there are other television programmes that focus on bed and breakfast, and the basics, obviously cleanliness, making sure the rooms are clean, a no hair policy. That's something that some people focus on. En suites is, I think, certainly if you were going to design a new hotel or bed and breakfast, everything would be en suite. That's not always possible in older buildings, but and that's reflected in whatever the tariff might be. But to me, I think that the key is cleanliness, and make sure people have a good send-off in the morning. They don't feel hungry. Yes, it's nice to have a nice. And they manage to pick up all their emails, then they'll be happy. Yeah, exactly. And comfortable bed, because I stayed somewhere the other week, and the bed was so bad. You just felt like you were you had to sleep in the middle of it, because if you slept anywhere towards the side, you would literally roll off it. I thought, gosh, a mattress doesn't cost too much nowadays. I couldn't go back there. It was awful. So yes, good mattress, Wi-Fi, nice and clean, and then hopefully get lots of customers. Any stories that you've sort of come across with clients over the years in terms of properties generating income? You mean apart from burnt beans and sleeping with customers? I think you get odd anecdotes. I mean, I can think of situations where it's certainly in the smaller hotel you get customers sometimes take over the whole hotel to themselves.
Yes.
All sorts of reasons. They might be on business or pleasure. But
And are there any general mistakes that you find that we do when we're purchasing a property for an income?
I think being too optimistic. It's just really important to be realistic. Do your research. Make sure you've got a really good idea what the occupancy rates are going to be, what the tariffs are going to be. Research the market, look at what the competition are doing, and that way you're going to mitigate any danger of being a bit sort of too enthusiastic, if you like, because at the end of the day it's all about generating cash. That's what's going to pay the bills.
And I suppose checking the books as well, looking at...
Yeah, it is. I think sometimes people, if they're not experienced in business and they go into a sort of B&B having not been in business, then they've got to be very careful. They need good advisors behind them. They need a good accountant, and they need to understand the bank and all those aspects.
All those things that we might not think about fear.
That's where it normally goes wrong. So you could have a very clean B&B, but if there's nobody staying there, then it's not going to work.
Yeah, exactly. Well, talking about B&Bs, that's exactly what we're going to be doing after the break, so don't go anywhere. I shall see you then. Before the break, we were discussing properties that can generate an income, which can be attractive for many reasons. Now, research suggests that whilst B&Bs are becoming more and more popular, they're also one of the most expensive types of small companies to purchase when the amount paid up front is compared to the turnover. Richard, was this a surprise to you?
Actually, no, I have to be honest, it's not. I think that it's a reflection on the fact that people, when they're looking to go into B&B and generate income, they're also looking for a home for their money.
Yeah.
I mean, people do borrow money sometimes to buy B&Bs, but from my experience, generally it's people paying with cash or from legacies or having sold other property or a business. So when they're looking at value, in old-fashioned terms, they're paying for the bricks and mortar of the actual physical buildings and premises and rooms, and then there'll be additional value attributed to the income side of the business. So depending on what that is, there'll be calculations done on what that means in terms of additional value. So the value is really split between the physical buildings and the income side of the business.
And I mean, if you think about it logically, I suppose a B&B isn't going to be a small building. It is going to have lots of bedrooms, so therefore it is going to cost more. But the average price it's saying of buying a B&B is $572,000, and that the turnover is around about $127,000, and that was according to a recent source. So, like we said, not cheap, but you are going to get that good turnover. And
yeah, you are, and of course, if you dissect those numbers down, I mean, I don't know what the average number of bedrooms would be, but certainly if somebody's doing $120,000 a year, they're really all they're paying for, frankly, is eggs, bacon, some cleaning, probably some help. I mean, there usually be a bit of help with cleaning, but you might find that out of that there might be half of that might be, pure income in terms of, and that's quite a high income, gives a nice lifestyle.
Definitely.
If somebody's earning sort of £50,000-60,000 a year, so you can see the attraction, you can see why people are willing to pay more to get into that lifestyle and generate that income.
Yeah, of course. I mean, you get to stay at home and just look after your home, and then I think you've got to love as well the British public, because you're going to get all sorts walking through your door as well. So you have to be, I think, realistic on that side of things as well, don't you?
Well, do you think you have to love people? I don't know.
Well, or pretend to.
Yeah, well, maybe so. I mean, I think you have to be a people person
you do,
generally,
don't you?
although, it's, I suppose that the classic image of the bed and breakfast landlady, I suppose, is changed a bit. I think people are more personable, and there is a finer line now between sort of bed and breakfast and smaller hotels, because depending on the licensing, the arrangements, people are offering more. Very often you'll find people will be offering evening meals and access to drinks, that sort of thing, depending on the local circumstances.
And people like to say in these boutique places as well, don't they? Boutique B&B or boutique hotels.
Yes, I think there's probably a little bit of a marketing element to that in terms of what people are looking for a hotel. But bed and breakfast generally, and you come back to the brass tacks of this, is very often you're dealing with people who might be in an area for a week or 2 weeks to work, and they really just want somewhere to put their head, to be fed and where they can rest.
Very true.
And with the increasingly with the tradesmen, you'll find they'll be in at sort of 5, 6, but they might be gone at 5, 6 the following morning. So it's not an intensive operation daytime.
Yeah, I suppose if you're running a B&B or looking to run one as well, it's having that balance as well, isn't it? You want to be able to be approachable, but actually some people don't want their space and they just want to get their head down. So yeah, good point.
Yeah.
Now we've got an example here, haven't we, to
Right.
show you. I love this one. It's a beautiful character property. It's a 7-bedroom house in Dinnington, Rotherham. It's on at 750,000, and this is very flexible in terms of living arrangements. You've got separate living quarters. It's part B&B with 3 letting rooms, so really flexible.
Well, I think this classically comes back to what we were saying earlier, because it may well be, as a B&B owner, you might be on your own or with a partner, or you could have a family. So,
Yes,
so
very
depending
true.
on how many family or extended family will depend how many rooms you make available for letting. So it's interesting that, ultimately these places were family homes.
Yeah.
Usually for the better off in the local community, and there would have been ancillary accommodation probably that would have been for staff. So as we move into the latest century, as we have done, you've got all these rooms that can be used for other purposes, and I think that's a classic case of flexibility being beneficial.
Yeah, definitely. So if you're thinking, for any of our viewers that are thinking of living at that dream and getting that B&B, what advice would you give to them?
I think actually probably go and stay in a few.
Okay, yeah.
It's people don't take me seriously on these sometimes, but actually if you are serious about going to that business, you need to target a location that suits you. It might be, as we were saying earlier, somewhere you used to have your holidays. That might be your dream in terms of being there.
Go and stay one of your competitors. If
Go and stay in 2 or 3, see what they're doing, and then do some notes. Do a compare list of what they're providing, what the tariff rates are, and really get a feel for what the industry is doing, so that you're not going into what you're doing blind.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that's really good advice. In fact, it's interesting, because I was at ITV a few months ago, and there was a guy that I was talking to who was directing this morning, and said, what else do you do? And he said, well, actually, I run a B&B. I said, really? What, you're here on this morning? And he said, well, yeah, and he absolutely loves it. So I think it's a lifestyle, isn't it, running a B&B?
Yeah, it's quite an easy bolt-on, as I was saying earlier. Because people are leaving in the morning, it does leave the daytime free. And if you've got a partner at home who's willing to be engaged in that, that's fine. And then he can go off and make his television programmes.
There you go, happy days.
Phone up and say, how's the B&B going?
Yeah, definitely. It can't be bad. Now, another thing that you do with Fine and Country is vendor videos, which I absolutely love, and we have a little one for you to take a look at now. Beautiful property. Gorgeous little dog as well. I don't suppose he comes with a house at all.
Well, he doesn't, but it's part of the lifestyle, and I think it's very important. And the reason we do this, and we have a tremendous response to the videos, is that I think people forget that when you're selling a house, you're not just actually selling a house. You're selling a little bit what we say about bed and breakfast. You're selling a lifestyle, and part of that is, people will have pets, and they might want space to ride out and do all sorts of things. So in the video, what we try and do is capture not just the property, but the the location within where it's setting.
Yeah. I think your videos are genius. Every time I see them, they're beautifully done. They're very, very detailed, like you said, you know, and you get some amazing shots. So you get to see different aspects of the property as well. So, you know, you're saying you get a really good response. I'm not surprised, they are stunning.
Well, I could claim to be the Spielberg of the industry, but that would be slightly unkind because there are quite a few people behind the scenes that help out with these things.
Yes, I bet it takes a while to...
Yeah, it does. But the other key, actually, with properties like that is a high-value property. So we're selling very often to people from outside of the area. So and that's something that we focus a lot on. So when you're selling high-value property, we're not just looking at a local market. We're looking at a national market, very often international market. I mean, we've got offices in 300 places around the planet. So from that point of view, if somebody is a long way away, it gives them the chance to get a real feeling for the property without yet getting on a plane or coming to actually see it.
Well, you deal with a real niche market, don't you? Is it over 500,000 generally and upwards?
Yes, we call it upper quartile. I mean, locally, generally it means locally it would be over £500,000 with a sort of unlimited ceiling. But it's very much a focal where you might be dealing with celebrities or people who want a bit of privacy. So sometimes you've got to be careful not to overmarket properties.
Yeah, of course. And what's the market like now for coming up to Christmas? Does it tend to get a little bit quieter?
Well, I mean, there's always a history of seasonality with properties in the country. I'm not sure that that's as relevant as perhaps it used to be. Yeah. I mean, people are very motivated by job moves, and that can happen at any time of year. And what we're seeing, I think the general response to the market at large is lower down. It's been very busy for some time. Coming up through the market, the general economy is getting a lot better now. And I think the sort of people you're selling to with multi-million-pound price tags, they're usually in business, and it's dependent on how successful their businesses are. So now they're seeing success. That's reflected in their aspiration.
Very true. Can it take a little bit longer, perhaps, to sell a property that might be a couple of million pounds?
Yeah, I think you've got to be realistic about the fact there's quite a narrow market of people who can spend a few £1,000,000. And also, as I say, you need to have time to widen out to an audience that might be overseas. So it's important you give the house a little bit of life on, and exposure. But at the same time, we are here to do business. So,
how long do you tend to find it is, though, to turn to sell a property? Say you've got a property for £3 million. Is there a general time frame?
Well, that's the $1 million question.
Oh, very good answer. I like it. Well, Richard, it's been a pleasure. Thank you for being here. You must come back. Got lots more to talk about.
I'd love to. Cheers.
I look forward to seeing you next week for lots more on Midlands at Home. Take care.